The Galactic Council's Grand Chamber fell silent as Ambassador Elena Santos stood before the massive semicircle of alien representatives. Thousands of beings from across known space watched from their elevated positions, their varied anatomies creating a living tapestry of tentacles, crystalline structures, energy forms, and more conventional organic shapes. The human diplomat's steady footsteps echoed through the chamber as she approached the speaking platform. High Counselor Vexthor, a towering being of shifting plasma contained within an ornate environmental suit, leaned forward. The Council has reviewed humanity's application for full membership status. We find several concerning elements in your submission. Elena maintained her diplomatic composure, though she noticed the subtle shifting of tentacles and appendages throughout the chamber, the alien equivalent of whispered conversations. The Earth Federation would be happy to address any concerns, High Counselor. Quite. Vexthor's plasma form flickered in what Elena had learned was their equivalent of amusement. Let us begin with your ship designs. Our analysis suggests they operate at roughly 30% efficiency compared to standard Galactic Council vessels. The power output readings are, frankly, primitive. A holographic display materialized above the chamber center, showing the human destroyer next to a Council equivalent. The size difference was stark. The Council vessel was nearly 4 times larger, its sleek lines and advanced materials making the human ship look like a crude approximation of space travel. With respect, High Counselor, we find our designs quite adequate for our needs, Elena replied carefully. Adequate for a developing species, perhaps, came a new voice. Councillor Zarkax of the Nexar Dominion rose from their seat, their crystalline body refracting light across the chamber. But the Council requires its members to maintain certain standards. We cannot have primitive vessels endangering shipping lanes or failing during joint military operations. Elena's jaw tightened slightly. Our safety record is irrelevant, Zarkax interrupted. The Council has standards. Standards your species clearly cannot meet, and that's before we address the biological concerns. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Elena had been expecting this. Humanity's classification as a Deathworlder species had always been a point of contention. Yes, Vexthor's plasma form pulsed with what might have been concern. Your species evolved on a world that would be lethal to 95% of Council races. Your biology is built around surviving extreme conditions. Some would say this makes you inherently dangerous. We have coexisted peacefully with numerous species for the past 15 years since first contact, Elena countered. Our biological nature has never caused an incident. Yet you maintain military vessels, another counselor called out. Primitive ones, but armed nonetheless. Why would a peaceful species need such things? Elena took a deep breath. The same reason the Council maintains its defense fleet, for protection and stability. We have never initiated a conflict with another species. Because you haven't had the opportunity, Zarkax said dismissively. Your ships can barely reach the edges of your own sector. But we've seen how Deathworlders behave when given access to advanced technology. The Krixar were similar to your kind. Primitive, aggressive, naturally adapted to extreme conditions. Within a century of gaining FTL capability, they had started 3 interstellar wars. We are not the Krixar, Elena said firmly. Humanity has its own path, its own values. Pretty words, Vexthor's plasma form swirled. But the Council must consider patterns, historical precedent. The combination of your primitive technology and Deathworlder nature presents too many risks. Elena knew where this was going, but protocol demanded she see it through. What is the Council's decision regarding Earth's application? Vexthor raised their environmental suit's arms. By unanimous vote, the Council rejects Earth's application for full membership status. Furthermore, we are implementing restrictions on human vessel movements beyond your current sector. This is for the safety of all spacefaring species. The chamber erupted in approving sounds from 1,000 alien throats. Elena stood straight, her expression neutral despite the diplomatic slap in the face. The Earth Federation notes your decision, "Aye, Counselor. We request the formal documentation of restrictions for review." "Of course," Vex Thor said magnanimously. "We are not unreasonable. In time, perhaps decades or centuries, when your species has advanced sufficiently and demonstrated proper civilization, you may apply again." As Elena turned to leave the chamber, Zarkax's crystalline voice cut through the noise. "Remember your place, human. The galaxy has order for a reason. Species like yours must learn to accept their limitations." Elena paused at the chamber's entrance, allowing herself one small breach of protocol. She turned back to face the council. "An interesting choice of words, Counselor. Species like yours. I wonder, how many other species have you dismissed as primitive, only to regret it later?" She left before they could respond, her footsteps echoing once more through the suddenly quiet chamber. As the massive doors closed behind her, Elena pulled out her quantum communicator, a device the Council would have been shocked to know humans possessed. "Control, this is Ambassador Santos. The Council rejected our application, as expected. They're implementing movement restrictions." She paused, allowing herself a small smile. "Exactly as intelligence predicted. Forwarding the recording now. Operation Pandora is a go." The response came instantly. "Understood, Ambassador. The fleet is already in position, hidden behind the quantum masks. Admiral Chen says to thank the Council for their predictability. Phase 2 begins in 48 hours. Elena entered her shuttle, finally allowing herself to relax. The Council thought they were containing a primitive, potentially dangerous species. They had no idea they were playing directly into humanity's hands. Sometimes, she mused, the best way to hide advanced technology was behind a facade of primitive design. And sometimes, the best way to change a prejudiced system was to let it underestimate you completely. As her shuttle broke orbit from the Council station, Elena checked the classified feeds. 12 human fleet groups were already in position, their quantum-masked ships invisible to Council sensors. The ships were anything but primitive. Their seemingly crude designs hiding technology that would make the Council's best engineers weep. A message from Admiral Chen flashed across her screen. "How long before they realized their protective restrictions just gave us legal justification to deploy within their territory." Elena smiled as she typed her response. "About as long as it takes them to realize why we let them think our ships were primitive. The galaxy's about to learn why underestimating Deathworlders is a very, very bad idea. The real first contact was about to begin. And this time, humanity wouldn't be asking for permission to join the galactic community. They would be demonstrating why excluding them had been the Council's greatest mistake. Phase 2 would begin soon, and with it, the carefully maintained illusion of human technological limitations would shatter, along with the Council's assumptions about primitive Deathworlders. Elena almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the EFSS Prometheus, watching the holographic display of Nexar warships entering the disputed Epsilon sector. To any observer, the massive crystalline vessels would have been an intimidating sight. The smallest of them dwarfed the visible human ships by several orders of magnitude. "They're right on schedule," Commander Sarah Rodriguez noted, her dark eyes scanning the tactical readouts. 17 capital ships, 42 support vessels, exactly as intelligence predicted. Chen nodded, a slight smile playing at her lips. Predictable as always. The Nexar never could resist a show of force. "Status of our quantum-masked ships. All fleet groups report ready. Admiral. The Nexar don't suspect a thing. As far as they're concerned, we only have 5 primitive destroyers in the sector." The bridge crew maintained their professional demeanor, but there was an undercurrent of anticipation in the air. They'd trained for this moment for years, waiting for the right opportunity to shatter the Council's illusions about humanity's capabilities. A communication request flashed across the main display. "Right on time," Chen murmured. "Put them through." The imposing form of Nexar Fleet Commander Zarkax materialized in the holographic display. Their crystalline bodies sparkled with barely contained contempt. This is your only warning, human. The Epsilon sector is now under Nexar protection. Remove your vessels immediately. Chen raised an eyebrow. Interesting declaration, Commander. The Epsilon sector falls under the free trade agreements signed by both our governments. Your presence here violates at least 6 different treaties. Treaties signed under false pretenses. Zarkax's crystalline form pulsed with color. The Council has determined that primitive species cannot be trusted with such vital trade routes. We are here to ensure proper civilization prevails. Proper civilization. Chen's voice carried just a hint of amusement. And I suppose your massive fleet is here to civilize us, if necessary. Zarkax's tone dripped with condescension. Though I doubt it will come to that, your primitive vessels are hardly a match for even one of our support ships. Withdraw now, and we may allow your species to maintain limited trading rights under Nexar supervision. Chen made a show of consulting her displays. That's a generous offer, Commander. However, I have a counter-proposal. She nodded to Rodriguez, who initiated a specific encrypted sequence. Why don't you take a closer look at your sensor readings? Zarkax's crystalline form shifted in what might have been irritation. Our sensors show exactly what we expected. 5 obsolete human vessels running on primitive fusion drives. Your attempts at bluffing air. The commander's voice cut off as the quantum masks began to drop. One by one, the hidden human fleet groups revealed themselves. Advanced warships, their hulls gleaming with technology far beyond Council standards, shimmered into existence. Where moments ago there had been empty space, now hundreds of ships appeared, their weapon systems online and shields at full power. Impossible. Zarkax's crystalline form flickered rapidly. These readings, they can't be correct. Your species doesn't have this technology. The Council's assessments were based on exactly what we wanted them to see. Chen finished. Did you really think a species that evolved on a death world would survive long enough to reach the stars without developing advanced technology? That we'd achieve faster than light travel with primitive fusion drives. The human fleet continued to materialize around the Nexar forces, forming an encompassing sphere. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, their quantum phase shields and graviton weapon arrays making the Nexar's crystalline technology look positively archaic in comparison. This is your only warning, Commander, Chen said, deliberately echoing Zarkax's earlier words. The Epsilon sector remains free trade space, as per our agreements. You can withdraw your forces now, or we can demonstrate exactly why underestimating Deathworlders is a grave tactical error. You dare threaten the Nexar Dominion. Zarkax's voice carried both rage and fear. The Council will do nothing, Chen interrupted, because officially, this conversation isn't happening. Your ships are violating legal treaties, while we are simply defending recognized trade routes. The Council's own laws support our position. Of course, you could try to engage us in combat. Would you like a demonstration of what our primitive technology can do to crystalline hull matrices? As if to emphasize her point, several human ships activated their graviton arrays, sending visible ripples through space-time. The Nexar vessel's crystalline structures vibrated in sympathy, their commanders suddenly realizing just how vulnerable their supposedly superior technology was. Zarkax's form had lost much of its earlier arrogance. You deceived the Council, hid your true capabilities. We protected ourselves, Chen corrected. The Council made it clear they feared what Deathworlders might do with advanced technology, so we showed them what they expected to see. Primitive ships, basic weapons, limited reach. It made everyone feel safe and superior. Unfortunately for you, Commander, that illusion no longer serves our purposes. The Nexar commander was silent for a long moment, their crystalline form shifting through various colors as they processed the situation. Finally, they spoke, their tone markedly different. Perhaps we can discuss a revision to the current trade agreements, one that acknowledges humanity's previously unrecognized capabilities. Chen smiled. Now that's a much more civilized approach, Commander. I'll have my diplomatic team contact yours within the hour. In the meantime, I trust your fleet will be withdrawing to a more appropriate distance." The Nexer fleet was already beginning to turn, their massive ships looking significantly less impressive now that the true balance of power had been revealed. As Zarkax's image faded from the display, Rodriguez turned to Chen. "Think they'll warn the Council?" "Oh, I'm counting on it," Chen replied, watching the Nexer ships retreat. "Ambassador Santos is already positioned to handle the political fallout. Sometimes the best way to change an entrenched system is to show them exactly why their assumptions were wrong." As the last Nexer ship disappeared into FTL, Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Phase 2 had gone perfectly. Now it was time for Phase 3, showing the galaxy that humanity wasn't just another primitive species to be patronized or controlled. They were here to reshape the very foundations of galactic society. And they were just getting started. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives from 100 species talked over each other, their various translators creating a cacophony of worried voices. High Counselor Vexthor's plasma form churned with agitation as they attempted to restore order. Ambassador Elena Santos sat quietly in humanity's observer section, maintaining a carefully neutral expression as she watched the pandemonium unfold. Beside her, her AI assistant silently recorded everything through quantum-encrypted channels. "Order." Vexthor's amplified voice finally cut through the noise. "We will have order in this chamber." The chaos gradually subsided, though the tension remained palpable. Counselor Zarkax's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained fury as they took the speaking platform. "The evidence is irrefutable," they began, projecting sensor data from the Epsilon Sector incident. "The humans have deceived us all. Their technology far exceeds anything they previously displayed. They have quantum masking capabilities that render our best detection systems useless. Their weapons, the crystalline being shuddered. Their graviton arrays could shatter our ships with a single volley." "How is this possible?" demanded Representative Kittel of the Zordan Collective, their tentacles writhing in agitation. "Our assessment teams examined their vessels thoroughly during the membership application process." Belina allowed herself a small smile as she activated her speaker. "Did you? Or did you examine exactly what we wanted you to see?" All eyes in the chamber turned to her. Vexthor's plasma form swirled. "Explain yourself, Ambassador." Elena rose gracefully, approaching the central platform. "It's quite simple, really. When we first achieved faster-than-light travel and discovered the galactic community, we also discovered something troubling, an inherent bias against what you call Deathworlder species." She gestured to the holographic displays. "You saw our ships as primitive because they appeared to match your expectations. Large, obvious vessels with basic propulsion and weapon systems. What you failed to consider was why a species that evolved on a high-gravity, high-radiation world with extreme temperature variations and dangerous wildlife would develop such inefficient designs. You deliberately missiled the Council," Zarkax accused. "Presented falsified technical data." "Not at all," Elena countered smoothly. "We simply showed you the outer layer of our technology. The basic hulls, the fusion drives. They're all real. They're just not our only technology, or even our primary technology. Think of them as training wheels, backup systems for worst-case scenarios." She touched a control panel, and new holographic images appeared, detailed schematics of actual human vessel capabilities. The chamber fell silent as the Council representatives processed what they were seeing. "Impossible," someone whispered. "These designs, they're centuries beyond current Council technology." "When you live on a world that constantly tries to kill you," Elena explained, "you either develop advanced technology very quickly, or you don't survive to reach the stars at all. We learned to manipulate quantum fields before we reached our moon. We had to. It was the only way to shield our early astronauts from our planet's radiation belts." Vexthor's plasma form had contracted to half its usual size, a sign of extreme distress. Why reveal this now? Why maintain the deception for so long? Elena's expression hardened slightly. Because you gave us no choice. From the moment of first contact, we were categorized, dismissed, and restricted, not based on our actual capabilities, but on your preconceptions about primitive Deathworlders. We quickly realized that showing our true technology would only heighten your fears and likely lead to preemptive action against Earth. So we adapted, she continued. We played the role you expected. The struggling young species, barely able to maintain stable fusion drives. We accepted your condescension, your restrictions, your protective measures, all while building our real fleet and establishing our true presence in the galaxy. The trade routes. Cthulhu's tentacles suddenly went rigid. All those primitive cargo ships. Our quantum masked carriers. Yes, Elena confirmed. We've been establishing quantum communication networks and defense grids throughout Council space for years. With your blessing, ironically, since you thought you were simply humoring a primitive species' attempts at trade. The chamber erupted again, but this time with a different tone. Fear. Elena raised her voice slightly to be heard over the commotion. Let me be clear. Humanity has no hostile intentions toward the Council or its members. In fact, we're here to offer a proposal, one that could transform the galaxy's power structure for the better. This isn't a threat, Counselor. It's an opportunity. Humanity has watched how the Council operates, how it treats lesser species, how it stifles innovation and competition in the name of stability. We believe there's a better way. She activated another holographic display, showing a new organizational structure for galactic governance. We propose a true federation, one where technological advancement isn't feared but encouraged, where species are judged by their actions and achievements, not their planetary origin, where cooperation and mutual defense take precedence over hierarchical control. And if we refuse? Vex Thor asked quietly. Elena smiled. Then nothing changes immediately. We'll continue to operate as we have been, protecting free trade routes and defending against aggressive actions. But consider this. How many other species have you dismissed as primitive? How many potential allies and innovations have you lost to your own prejudices? We're offering you a chance to be part of something greater. The chamber was silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just revealed their technology. They'd revealed the fundamental flaws in the Council's entire system of governance. You have one standard cycle to consider our proposal, Elena concluded. We look forward to your response. Remember, the galaxy is changing, with or without your participation. The only question is whether you'll help shape that change, or be shaped by it. As she returned to her seat, Elena activated her quantum communicator. Control, this is Santos. Phase 3 complete. Begin Phase 4 preparations. The response came back instantly. Understood, Ambassador. Admiral Chen reports all fleet groups are in position. Operation Paradigm Shift is proceeding as planned. Elena looked out over the still stunned Council chamber. The real work was just beginning. Admiral Chen watched the quantum display as reports flooded in from across Council space. The revelation of humanity's true capabilities had sparked exactly the reaction they had anticipated. Panic among some species, calculation among others, and most importantly, hope among those who had long chafed under Council restrictions. Ma'am, Commander Rodriguez called from her station. We're receiving requests for diplomatic contact from 27 non-Council species. The Arxian Republic and the Voth Collective are particularly insistent. The ones the Council deemed too primitive for full membership. Chen nodded. Forward their requests to Ambassador Santos' team. Any movement from the Nexer fleet. They're maintaining position at the edge of their territory. Our quantum sensors show they're trying to adapt their crystalline matrices to resist graviton weapons. They're not having much success. The Admiral allowed herself a small smile. The Nexer's obsession with crystalline technology had always been their weakness. Beautiful, but predictable. Like so much of Council space, they'd stopped innovating centuries ago, content in their perceived superiority. A priority alert flashed across her display. "This is interesting," she murmured. "The Council's making their move sooner than expected. All hands. Battle stations. Let's show them what humanity's been holding back." Across human space, and in carefully hidden positions throughout Council territory, the true might of Earth's fleet revealed itself. Ships that had masqueraded as simple freighters and patched-together destroyers shed their quantum masks, revealing vessels that represented the pinnacle of human engineering. The Prometheus itself transformed, its outer hull reconfiguring to expose arrays of technology that the Council had dismissed as theoretical impossibilities. Quantum phase shields, dark matter reactors, and gravity manipulation systems, far beyond anything the Council races had achieved. Multiple Council battle groups detected, Rodriguez reported. They're attempting to establish a containment perimeter around human space. She paused, checking another reading. And yes, they're trying to activate the dormant defense networks they placed near our trade routes. The ones they thought we never noticed. Chen nodded. Signal the tech teams. Time to show them why underestimating human hackers was their second biggest mistake. Throughout Council space, supposedly secret defense platforms and monitoring stations suddenly went dark. When they reactivated moments later, they were under human control. Their weapons and sensors turned against their former masters. Council battle groups are in disarray, Rodriguez reported with professional satisfaction. They're realizing that every piece of technology they deployed to contain us is now part of our defense network. Quantum communications are flowing through their own relays. Their sensor nets are feeding data directly to our tactical systems. Chen activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships maintain defensive positions only. We're not here to start a war. We're here to prevent one. Let them see what they're facing. The Council forces quickly discovered that their attempts to approach human space were being thwarted by their own defense systems. Every move they made was anticipated and countered before it began. Their most advanced stealth systems were useless against quantum sensors they hadn't known existed. "Admiral," Rodriguez called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Council chamber. Ambassador Santos reports that the moderate factions are calling for an emergency vote." Chen nodded. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. "Put it on the main display." The image of High Counselor Vexthor appeared, their plasma form noticeably agitated. "Admiral Chen, your demonstration of force has made its point. The Council requests negotiations." "The Council demands, you mean?" Chen raised an eyebrow. "No," Vexthor's form flickered. "Requests. We recognize that the balance of power has shifted. Ambassador Santos' proposal for reformation merits serious consideration." "I'm glad to hear that," Chen replied. "But let's be clear. This isn't about humanity dominating the Council. It's about creating a genuine partnership among species. One where technological advancement isn't feared, where cooperation replaces control." "And if we agree to these reforms," Vexthor asked, "what guarantee do we have that humanity won't simply take control?" Chen's expression softened slightly. "Look at what we've already done, Counselor. We could have used our technology to conquer. Instead, we spent years building defense networks, protecting trade routes, and preparing to prevent exactly that kind of aggression. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to help transform it." She gestured to a tactical display showing human ships moving to defensive positions around key trade routes and civilian centers. "Your battle groups are currently surrounded by our forces. But notice, we haven't fired a single shot. This isn't a conquest, it's a demonstration. A chance to show you that the galaxy is bigger, more complex, and more wonderful than your current system allows." Vexthor was silent for a long moment. "The Council will need time to process these changes, to adapt." "Of course," Chen agreed. "Change isn't easy. But ask yourself, would you rather have humanity as partners in building a better galaxy, or continue a system that forces advanced species to hide their true capabilities out of fear?" As the transmission ended, Rodriguez turned to her admiral. think they'll actually reform. They don't have much choice, Chen replied. But more importantly, they're beginning to see why reform is necessary. Sometimes the best way to change a system isn't to break it, but to show it a better path. She looked out at the stars, where human ships now flew openly, their true power finally unveiled. Send word to Ambassador Santos. Phase 4 is complete. Time to begin the real work, building a galaxy where no species has to hide what they can become. 6 months after humanity's revelation of their true capabilities, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. The traditional hierarchical seating had been replaced by a circular arrangement, symbolizing the new era of cooperation. Ambassador Elena Santos sat at a newly installed conference table, reviewing the latest reports with Admiral Chen and representatives from various species. The transition is proceeding faster than anticipated, reported Ketal of the Zordan Collective, their tentacles moving in patterns of satisfaction. 17 former primitive species have already joined the new Federation framework. Their contributions to our shared knowledge base have been remarkable. Amazing what happens when you stop suppressing innovation, Admiral Chen noted, studying a holographic display of the reformed galactic territory. The Arxian's gravity wave communications technology alone has revolutionized our deep space networks. Elena smiled, remembering how the Council had once dismissed the Arxians as barely capable of sustainable fusion. Now their scientists were working alongside human engineers, combining their unique perspectives to solve problems that had stumped both species individually. There is still resistance, Zarkax noted, their crystalline form significantly less rigid than before. The Nexar representative had become one of the strongest advocates for reform after seeing firsthand the benefits of cooperation. Several of the old guard species have refused to join the Federation, as is their right. Elena responded, "The Federation isn't about forcing compliance. It's about offering opportunities." Speaking of which, she activated a holographic display showing a new ship design. The first joint human-Nexar engineering project is ready for trials. The image showed a vessel that combined human quantum technology with Nexar crystalline architecture in ways neither species had thought possible. It was beautiful, efficient, and completely unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. "Impossible," someone whispered, but this time the word carried wonder rather than dismissal. "That's what we keep hearing." Admiral Chen smiled. "Right before we prove otherwise. The quantum crystal hybrid drive is testing at 300% efficiency compared to our previous best designs. Turns out humans aren't the only ones who were holding back innovations." A junior delegate raised an appendage. But how? How did humanity maintain the deception for so long? Surely someone must have detected something. Elena exchanged a glance with Chen before responding. "The greatest deception wasn't our technology. It was letting you believe that physical size and apparent complexity equaled advancement. Humanity learned long ago that true sophistication often looks simple from the outside. We didn't hide our capabilities so much as present them in a way that matched your expectations. Like the quantum masks, Zarkax's crystalline form shimmered with understanding. They were hidden in plain sight, disguised as basic sensor reflectors." "Exactly," Chen nodded. "Just like our graviton weapons were dismissed as primitive point-defense arrays, the Council saw what they expected to see, a young species struggling with basic technology. They never asked why a Deathworlder species would develop such inefficient systems." "And now?" Call asked, "What happens now that the truth is known?" Elena stood, addressing the entire chamber. "Now we do what humanity has always done best. We adapt, we innovate, and we help others do the same. The Federation isn't just a new political structure. It's a new way of thinking about galactic civilization." She gestured to the various species representatives. "Look around this room. 6 months ago, half of you wouldn't have been allowed in the Council chamber. Now you're helping design the future of galactic society. That's what humanity wanted all along, not to rule, but to unlock the potential in every species. Even those who once dismissed us as primitive, Admiral Chen added with a slight smile toward Zarkax, who had the grace to flicker in embarrassment. A series of alerts flashed across the main display. Elena quickly reviewed them, her expression brightening. Perfect timing. The first Federation Joint Research Facility has just gone online at Epsilon Station. Teams from 23 species working together, sharing knowledge openly for the first time. And the old Council restrictions? Someone asked. Being replaced with safety guidelines developed by actual scientists and engineers, Chen replied. No more arbitrary limitations based on species origin or philosophical fears. If you can prove your technology is safe and beneficial, you can develop it. Elena activated one final holographic display, showing the growing network of Federation worlds and facilities. This is what humanity saw possible from the beginning. A galaxy where advancement isn't feared, where cooperation replaces competition, where every species can reach their full potential. She turned to address the chamber directly. We hid our capabilities not out of fear, but out of hope. Hope that when the time came, the galaxy would be ready for change. Hope that other species would see the benefits of true cooperation. That hope wasn't misplaced. The chamber was quiet for a moment before Zarkax spoke. We once feared what Deathworlders would do with advanced technology. We never imagined you would use it to unite us. That's because you focused on where we came from. Elena smiled, rather than where we wanted to go. Humanity didn't survive its death world by being aggressive or dominating. We survived by adapting, cooperating, and most importantly, by dreaming of something better. As the session concluded, Admiral Chen joined Elena at the chamber's observation window. Beyond the station, ships of various species moved together in harmony, their designs already beginning to show the influence of shared technology and ideas. Think we'll ever tell them about Phase 5? Chen asked quietly.